Welcome, Nigel. Welcome to Leadership Inside Out. We've known each other a few years, and it's a real pleasure to spend time with you today. You've got a fascinating background. You've got some real strengths in different parts, and have worked extensively with different leaders across the years. So I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to today's session. So yes, welcome.
Thanks, Guy. Me too.
Good. Where would you like to start, Nigel? You wanna start back at the beginning, or
Why don't I give you the abbreviated CV? So for the last 20 years, I've sold and led sales functions. You name it. If it's in learning and development or training or HR, I've either sold it myself or I've run the sales function. Training, recruitment, products. Employee engagement solutions, coaching, 360s, and as you know, currently in psychometric assessment. So that's what I've done for the last 20 odd years. Before that, I had about a 9-10 year period after university where I pursued a career as an actor. So I trod the boards.
that's new, isn't it?
Yeah, it was the only thing I ever wanted to do as a kid. And so I didn't go to drama school, but I went to university. I did drama and English literature at university. As I said, pursued that for 8-9 years. Absolutely loved it, but kind of got to that age where, you know what, my wife and I were talking about starting a family. Very insecure lifestyle, so kind of had to make some choices, which absolutely were the right thing. Happy to do so, but yeah, it was a big career change in my early 30s.
Wow. And you moved into, was it managing sales teams?
Initially carrying the bag myself,
Yeah.
and then latterly, running different types of sales teams. So whether it's direct employed functions, or as I am now, I'm running a channel. So here at Harrison, we've got about 200 channel partners across Europe and Africa who I'm responsible for. So
Wow.
yeah.
So what took you from acting into sales and the sales function, and particularly, where you've ended up in terms of the sort of psychometrics and so forth?
So yeah, as I said, first up, it was a case of, as I said, I needed some security with that. That came, and obviously where it's different. When my wife was kind of like the full-time employee, well, again, as I said, wanting to start a family. Obviously, she's probably that's going to affect her ability to work full time, and like I say, we needed some security. So that kind of prompted it. It took me a good 18 months between starting having these thoughts before I actually found the right role. So that was kind of the thing, and I thought about, okay, well, what did I want to do? Because as I said, I wasn't looking to change jobs. I was looking to change careers. It was never going to be a temporary thing. As much as I loved the career, made it, did okay. Wasn't a name, but nevertheless made a living out of it. As I said, I knew it was time to completely change. And I thought, well, what am I good at? And I thought, well, I'm good with people. So that suggested sales to me. And I'd done a little bit of psychology, as I said, even though my primary degree was drama and English literature. I'd done some optional psychology. So psychology was something that I was always interested in. And then, just discovered businesses within the learning and development world. And obviously psychology can be a big part of that. And the rest is history.
Wow. And what was that? So as an actor, I mean, that's a relatively transient lifestyle.
Yeah.
I assuming that was similar to that. That's quite a big jump into a permanent full-time, I assume.
Yep.
How was that transition?
Well, even now, I remember, at the end of my first month, they gave me some money because I'd never had salary. I mean, obviously I'd done a few, I'd worked behind the tills at my local supermarket as a kid, and I'd had a few bar jobs over the years at university. But yeah, this was my first. It was I would say it wasn't until my 30s that I had my first full-time employed role.
Wow.
I worked there for a month. Obviously, induction, training, onboarding, all the stuff that was completely new to me at the time. Obviously, I'm very familiar with it now. And at the end of that month, they gave me some money. I'm like, it's brilliant. Because I was used to, well, if you're not achieved anything, you didn't earn any money. So I was so that it was kind of a new experience to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
And in terms of making that transition, in terms of the hours, in terms of how did that
Yeah.
how did you cope with that? How as I say, in amongst clearly some big personal
Yeah.
ninjas thoughts going on as well.
Yeah. I think because I've been always quite a proactive person. I haven't even when I was acting, I didn't tend to sit around waiting for the phone to ring. Obviously it's very nice when the phone did ring, but I was also out there trying to generate opportunities, trying to build networks, get to know people, which is in many way has influenced how I've approached both as an individual contributor in sales, but now latterly as a sales leader.
Oh,
It's always been about going out and building relationships with people, getting to know people.
wow.
I get asked quite regularly by colleagues and some of our distributors, well, what's the company strategy? And for me, it's three things: know, like, trust. But
Right.
it comes in that order. You've got to know people, then you like people, and then if you like them, you trust them, and then ultimately, that, in my experience, does lead to commercial opportunities.
And that's fascinating because I had that impression. I've known you for a few years, and you clearly have this way with people. And if nothing else, acting gives you some of those skills to
It
work with
does.
people.
Yeah. Yeah, I embraced an approach to acting. Many people you might have heard of called method acting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's kind of a step beyond that, developed by a practitioner of the craft called Sanford Meisner. Died a few years ago now, American, but I kind of discovered that approach, and it just changed everything in my acting career because it was a real approach. There was almost a process to it. Um,
Okay.
he, it's probably sitting in my business books. His book, which is called On Acting. It's an interesting book, and as I say, if you're interested in acting, whether it's professionally or just out of interest, it's a really good read.
So into your first job,
Mm.
where do you go from there?
So yeah, I went in there, and as I said, some of that natural proactiveness really helped. Particularly, again, if any listeners, if you're involved in sales, yes, it's great with inbound leads, and that's fantastic and warm. But most sales top people, you have to go out and generate some of your own stuff as well.
Yeah.
So for me, that proactiveness really helped my success, and it was. I realized, obviously, who's my market? Well, my market was HR people, HR and L&D people.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was really lucky. So where I lived, the CIPD was very active.
Right.
Did lots of events. Obviously, this is, best part of 20 years ago, so long before COVID, and obviously all the changes we've had in the last few years with virtual working. But at the time, it was, and I went out to the opening of an envelope. You name it. If there was going to be a room full of HR managers, I would go in and I would just go and meet people.
Wow.
And I would listen, and because not least of all, because obviously my background wasn't HR, so I didn't really understand anything about HR. So I had to educate myself on what are the challenges that HR people or L&D people have and all that kind of stuff. But also a chance to meet them, build relationships, and often you'd meet, say hi, and maybe a few months later you'd meet them at another event. Oh, hi, how you doing? And it was always it was always after the third one. Oh, Nigel, can we have a chat? Because they've kind of, again, back to my philosophy of know, like, and trust, they've kind of got to know me a little bit. They know I'm not going to try and force stuff down their throat and do that hard, that, I was about to say a particular type, but, I'm sure we can all think of that kind of sales professional. Maybe not quite as professional as I would suggest that you should be. So, yeah, I always built that relationship first. And so that's what happened there. And, yeah, as I said, because I felt I was pretty good with people, and I like to think I'm a reasonably friendly and warm person. That got me, they got me in the front door. And one of the biggest challenges arguably the biggest challenge in sales is walking in the front door of the organization in the first place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, I love the way that you summarize that, because, essentially what you're suggesting is that not only leadership, but work is all about people, about connections and relationships.
Absolutely. And whilst obviously I'm not working at that company anymore, it taught me that the importance of whatever that the language, that understanding, understanding my own behaviors and my own emotions, recognizing and managing those, and then understanding and recognizing and managing the emotions of other people, which I think in all roles, but I think particularly in any sort of leadership role, this is a key skill. And I was very fortunate because the companies that I worked for, that's what, as well as learning to do it when I did step into leadership roles, but obviously those companies did that sort of stuff as well.
Yes.
So it was kind of, it was a steep learning curve, but it was an enjoyable one.
Wow. So you go from being in the front end, so to speak, the front line, go into management. Was that another step, or was that just a natural progression?
I think it was kind of a natural progression. It was the classic, and again, I'm not going to mention any names of employers because that would be inappropriate. But it was the classic. I was the top performing rep in the team.
Right.
The previous manager moved on, and I applied for the job. I applied for the manager role because obviously I was ambitious. Yes, I like people and I like sell and I like to think I'm good with people, but I was ambitious as well. Got the job, and I walk out on the Friday, member of the team. Walk in Monday morning. I'm now leading the team. I'm supposed to have this magic weekend, and I wouldn't be surprised if the viewers and the listeners can relate that, because the stat I saw was like most people's first management training is about 10 years after they get their first manager job. Yes. I was no different. And I have the magic weekend and suddenly learn everything it is to be a manager and everything that comes with that. Wow. So yeah, that was a second very, very steep learning curve.
So talk me through that first month, that first 6 months.
Wow, first 6 months. I'll talk you to the first day. Sitting down with the HR manager, finding out all the members of my team who are on performance reviews. Wow. Which obviously I didn't know that, because obviously when I was a member of the team, obviously they don't share that. That's fair enough. So find out, okay, you got to manage this and you got to manage that, and in that made some mistakes, like many people. Hopefully learned from them. There was at one point I had 4 new starters all at the same time. Yeah, that was a big mistake.
Yeah.
It's too many. I couldn't give enough attention to each person. So in latter roles where I've had direct employees as a team, I've always said no more than 2 starters at the same time. Otherwise, as I said, there's just not enough hours in the day. Otherwise, had to fire a few people. Had to learn from that. Felt pretty bad doing it, but it comes with the territory. So yeah, again, first 12 months, a lot of steep learning. I think learning that you know what, you don't have it, you don't have the answers. No. You absolutely don't have the answers. One of the things, and I was thinking about, I wasn't sure if I was going to share this or not with you, because one of the things now I'm thinking a few years further down the line of my career, post what I'm talking about now. The culture of the business I worked at changed quite significantly. It became quite toxic, and that came from the top. And I learned a lot of things that, okay, that's not how to do it. And I was thinking about why, and I've reflected on this quite a bit over the years, because it did affect me quite a lot. And I thought, why did this bother me so? Why? And when you're in the middle of it, sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees. And I know my wife said, yeah, she saw how stressed I was. This is quite a few years later. And I'm quite an emotional guy. I'm quite a heart on my sleeve kind of a guy. I can't play poker because I can't bluff. If I've got a good hand, you know it. So, and I realized some stuff from my childhood because I'm a child of the 70s and the 80s. I'm into my 50s now, but I grew up in the 70s and the 80s, and I distinctly remember, probably about age 8, 9, 10, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
My parents almost cut off a lot of physical contact. I was quite cuddly. I'd love to cuddle when I was a little baby. I loved to cuddle. Now, I'm sure they did it for the best of reasons. Again, if you know that period, they called it, you just toughen your children up a little bit.
Tough love.
Tough love, yeah. So I'm sure my parents did it for the best of intentions.
Right.
But it had quite a. Now, obviously, as a child, I couldn't articulate it, and obviously now as an adult, I can recognize it. I can recognize the negative impact it's had, not just then, but probably ongoing. It's made me quite. What's the best word to use? Suspicious of my emotions, perhaps. I'm not sure if that's but nevertheless, because I was almost being told, well, you're emotional, you're getting upset about something, you want to cuddle, that's wrong. Yes. They didn't say it in quite that bluntly, but that was kind of how I took it.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of learned, and so the importance of that vulnerability as a leader, and I'm willing to share that. And obviously, again, people can't tell here, but I'm a big guy. I'm 16.5 stone. I'm 6'3", so I'm quite a big guy.
We're of a very similar build.
Yeah, very, very diplomatically put. Yeah, different haircuts. That kind of vulnerability, which I think really important in leaders, and it kind of got reinforced, as I said. The leader at the time was just the opposite. He was the classic hit him over the head with a big stick, and if that doesn't work, go and get a bigger stick. And it was very considered. He absolutely was bash people down as much as possible to get, and it was just, as I say, it was horrible. And again, I've spoken to a number of ex-colleagues over the years, and we all agree it was a terrible time to work for that company, just the way we were treated. And yeah, obviously there's challenges with revenue and sales. Obviously sales, you live and die by your numbers and all that kind of stuff, but that's no excuse. And so for me, it's always about, even if I do have to make difficult decisions, and even if I do have to give people bad news, we're all human beings. We've got a responsibility to each other. Even if I've got to deliver that bad message, I'm not going to be unpleasant about it. Yeah. So thinking, so that's certainly from my own learning and my own journey. I say I've seen some leaders, I've learned how not to do it, and I've said, what, that's that this is, we are feeling creatures, we're emotional creatures as human beings, and you have to recognize that.
Absolutely.
And I credit, because obviously, again, I've had in my career, I've had ups and downs, and some jobs have worked out, and some haven't. One that didn't work out was joining a training company just before COVID, which was brutal, because people just cancelled meetings, because understandably they were like, well, hold on, this budget we had allocated to do training, we now have to go and buy laptops for everyone because they're going to be working from home. We need to keep the money in the bank to make sure that they can pay the salary. So I can understand why all the clients cancelled training, because they had to find the money from somewhere. But if you were the one selling the training, wow, it was just like, I remember it was like cancel meeting, cancel, which, yeah. So not the best, not the best timing. But even when I left them, I wished them well, and it didn't work out, but we're still human beings, and shook hands and said all the best and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And most recently, you're in a role where you're working with third parties, aren't you? So, and again, it's a very different leadership model in some ways, but
yeah. And I like it. And obviously, there's no perfect business model. One of the benefits of this is the talent that we have in our partner network, which is what we call we have distributor or reseller agreements. We call them partners, but it's that kind of stuff. Typically it's HR companies, it's management consultancies, training companies, recruitment businesses who add our assessments to their client offering. The talent that's in it is amazing. And if everyone was on payroll, my wage bill every month would be astronomical, and I would have trouble sleeping, worrying about how am I going to pay everyone this month. So that's absolutely the upside. I think this is where my natural, whether natural or learned, I'm not sure, but my leadership style is beneficial because I can't. Not that I'm someone who pulls rank anyway, but I can't pull rank because they don't work for me. They don't work for us. I can't. So I do have to get that buy-in. I do have to have that collaborative nature, which fortunately is how I like to lead people anyway. So yeah, I think it would be if that coming with that gung ho as back to my CEO from many years ago in a previous company who hit people over the head. Yeah, that's not going to work with this kind of arrangement. So yeah, it's a different model, but I think for our business it works really well.
Right, and clearly there seems to be some affinity with your own personal style as well.
Yeah. And again, not I'm also of that age that one of the things I'm looking for in a job is a level of autonomy. I'm very fortunate that our CEO, basically was, Nigel, we've hired you to do the job because we know you can do it. Get on and do it. And when you need something, let us know. But, and obviously I know where the line in the sand is, but I certainly, I'm very fortunate. I do get to travel for work. I'm off to Ghana for the week in middle of February to spend some time with our.
Sounds like hell, but
yeah, it's going to be tough. That the weather will be much nicer than it is in the UK. But yeah, so a week with our partner out there, doing some training with their team on sales, doing some doing some seminars with their customers to help increase their sales. So I get to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I got a level of autonomy that says I don't have to kind of go get approval for it. I just got to do it. Now, obviously, there is a level where if I want to go spend too much, I have to obviously go and put the business case together. But yeah, I like the fact that I'm trusted in that way, and it was almost from day one. I'm trusted in that way. I've kind of know how to do it. I know what I'm doing. I know when to refer up. It was something actually that I did learn when I worked for a previous training company. I won't say the name. But if you're familiar with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, then that might give you an indicator of who it was. What I loved about that was not just that, that's just one bit of their IP. They've got fantastic IP, absolutely world class. And obviously, because I was selling it, I had to learn it all. So one of the upsides, again, I get to do all this amazing training. For me, one of the trust thing. And it taught me that actually, you know what? My attitude has always been, I'm going to trust you until you give me a reason not to. So rather than that, I don't believe in trust is earned. I believe, no, my default position is I will trust you. Now, if I know you haven't passed your driving test, I'm not going to loan you my car. I'm not going to be naive about it, but nevertheless, the starting position will be, I trust you until such time as you give me a reason not to. And again, when as a younger man and in other jobs, people have said to me, "Oh, that's naive. You're being innocent. You're being taken advantage of." Join this training company, and if you know their speed of trust methodology, it absolutely says that is absolutely the way to do it. And there's evidence that if you're a high trust organization, everything happens quicker, it happens cheaper, it's more effective. So, but you start from that position of, until you give me a reason not to, I will trust you. So yeah, it helped. That was one of a really good learning thing there about leadership, because it said, actually, you know what? Despite what other people might think, you know what? I have been right, and to trust my own judgment. And sometimes you do have to. I don't care what everyone else is saying. I know I'm right on this. So yeah, just if you think you're right on everything, then that's a different problem. But
wow. So, what does the future hold then?
Wow. Hopefully, as a family man, as my kids transition through higher and further education and into the world of work, and obviously, hopefully my kids will start to. Well, hopefully at some point they'll start earning a crust and they can start paying some rent. That'd be nice. Career-wise, I think I'm very happy with what I'm doing. I'm enjoying it. I feel like I'm making a difference. So I certainly see a long-term doing what I do. Yeah. Who knows? Who knows in a few years' time? I'm not the sort of person who wants to. I've got friends who talk about retiring in a few years' time, and I'm just like, when you get bored. I mean, whether or not we can afford it is another, it's a completely separate issue. But and so I touch, fingers crossed and touch wood, health permitting. Can't see any reason why I'd want to certainly not wouldn't want to retire full time. I might ease off, maybe in about 10, 15 years time, I might ease off and reduce. And you can see the cricket shirt. So I'm a big cricket fan, so I might go and watch a bit more cricket, and cut down a little bit on my hours. But yeah, overall, I enjoy what I do, and I like to think I add value. So I can't see any huge changes in the future.
So if I look back, Nigel, I mean, some of the themes that have come through really loud and clear. You've been prepared to take risks.
Yep.
You've moved, quite significantly across your careers. You're clearly very optimistic. You are constantly looking for the good, and it's sort of subtle, but and partly I think maybe because I know a little bit about your background, but there's also a strong element of learning in there. You're constantly learning and constantly updating that skills. Is that a fair assessment, a fair summary of those sort of major themes of your career?
I hope so. I hope that's the case. I think the moment you think you know everything, you're in trouble.
Right.
I also, and because I do reflect quite a lot, I'm perhaps a little bit more introspective than a lot of sales professionals out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've realized part of what my success, and as I said, I've had my successes and I've had my failures like everyone. If I look at my successes, it's usually been down to, without trying to sound too egotistical here, I'm good at lots of stuff. Now, I'm not the expert in anything by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. But I'm actually quite good at lots of different things, and I think so that jack of all, maybe not all, but jack of many, cliche, I think is true, and that's helped me be successful and helped me certainly very much in this role when I've done similar sort of channel sales leadership rather than direct sales leadership. That certainly helped, but I've also recognizing that we're all a work in progress, and there's always room for improvement. There's always learning to be had. And I mean, we've done almost half an hour and we haven't mentioned AI, but hey, the impact of AI and quantum computing and blockchain and all the impact of technology over the next, 5 minutes, but certainly over the next 20 years is going to be massive. Yeah. So so things are changing very quickly. But also one of the things I really enjoy in a role is variety. So I like the fact that, I'm doing the high level and I'm doing the strategic stuff and I'm thinking about this and I've got, looking at P&L, looking at revenue numbers. But you know what? Sometimes it's literally one of our partners phoning me up and saying, Nigel, how do I do this on your platform? And I really like the fact that variety. I thought if I was just doing lots and lots of strategic planning, and if I was doing tactical, if I was just doing, kind of customer service, if I was just doing that possibly wouldn't be too stimulating. But the fact that I get a real variety of different responsibilities, that's something that is keeps me entertained.
Good, and I'm glad we're not talking about AI because it's one of my latest little things, and it's could talk for hours on we're in the just beginning a new dawn, or a new revolution in the way that we can interact with technology, and it's both, in my mind, both exciting and quite scary. So.
Well, yeah, obviously, I don't know when this is going out. Obviously, the Chinese one app that got launched, was it yesterday or something, and it just completely killed on the valuations of a load of European and American companies. So yeah, so it's going to be something interesting that perhaps we need to embrace, but particularly our kids.
Yeah.
My kids are 21 and 16, and yeah, if they don't understand this stuff, and we're not using AI in our solution, but we're not in our commercial offering, but we're using AI operationally.
Absolutely.
And the fact that I can go in even with my limited techno fear, can go into like ChatGPT and just put I was doing something with very fascinating topic of withholding tax in Turkey. But yeah, I can put it all in there, and it'll chuck it all out, because that sort of stuff. I'm responsible for it, but I don't even know the right questions to ask. So put it in chat, and yeah, even I'm using it.
Yeah, wonderful. What would you say to your younger self? 20s, probably early 30s as well.
Yeah, there's a few things. I think don't fear failure.
Good advice.
But I think be mindful again, because if you live in sales, you work in sales, you live and die by your numbers, and so it's all very well to say, well, we'll learn from our failures, but that doesn't work if you're going to get fired for failing, which does tend to happen if you fail as a salesperson. So yeah. I would say don't fear it, but also don't be stupid. Without being too trite, for me, the most important thing in the world has always been happiness.
Okay.
Fine, whether it's professionally, whether it's personally. I think if you're happy, you're more like, success doesn't necessarily bring happiness, but if you're happy, you're more likely to be successful. And I can certainly think about the times where I've had more wins than losses. It's usually part of that has been because I've felt good in myself, in the relationships, where both my private life and my professional life, and I've genuinely been pretty happy with stuff and people. Yeah. So yeah, whereas the times where we've all got our bills to pay, and we live in a capitalist society, and we do have to earn money to buy stuff. But if you're just chasing that dollar or that pound or the euro or whatever it is, just for its sake, that's probably not going to make you happy. But if you're happy, you're actually probably more likely to be successful. And all the nice things that come with success.
Thank you. Any last words?
I think ending on the most important thing in the world is to be happy. I think that's a good place to end.
I think it's a perfect way to end. Nigel, thank you so much. A real pleasure to listen to you. Real pleasure to hear your story today. So I really appreciate it, and as always, a privilege for me. So thank you. It's been wonderful.
My pleasure, Guy. Thank you. Yeah, great to talk.